Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of the WatchRolling.com podcast, a veteran-owned podcast that focuses on watch collecting with the goal of helping veterans. My name is Jason, and I'm your host. If you're new to the pod, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. Last week, I took a week off to relax and knock out some personal and professional items, but I did not take a break from actually doing some watch-related content. I appeared on 2 live streams with Sam from the Casual Watch Reviews or Casual Watch Talk channel on YouTube. And we do these live streams now every Tuesday evening, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time for all my fellow military people, 1930 EST. And these 2 discussions we had a discussion about whether we thought people were paying too much money for watches with basic movements. And then the second discussion we had were the best new watch releases that we saw that were under $500. And both of the discussions were fun. We have guests on occasionally, and it's just good-hearted, entertaining conversation. I invite you to check them out. I'll include both links in the show notes. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Mushi Watch Straps. Mushi Watch Straps is a veteran-owned business and provides well-built, fairly priced NATO straps, 2-piece straps, leather, and canvas straps, as well as watch tools, accessories, and storage. Feel free to use the code VET10, that's Victor Echo Tango 10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order. I will include the link to Mushi Watch Straps in the show notes, and they can be found at www.mushiwatchstraps.com. And that's Mushi, M-U-S-H-I, watchstraps.com. And this week on the pod, we're going to discuss the VA launching a $20 million innovation challenge to reduce veteran suicide and why the MoonSwatch has to repeat kindergarten. In veteran-related news, the VA's launched a $20 million innovation challenge to reduce veteran suicide. Now, I mentioned in episode 10 before I took the week break that I was going to start trying to, delve into some more serious topics. And this is one of them, veteran suicide. Suicide in general, but veteran suicide is a pretty big topic. Any way I can get some information out there to help people who might be struggling, or people who have family members that might be struggling, or if I can just put another resource out there or provide some news that'll help any fellow veteran or their family, that's what I'm going to try to do. So the VA launched a $20 million innovation challenge to reduce veteran suicide. It's over a 10-year strategy that the VA's come up with. And through this vehicle, the VA is inviting innovators across the country to participate in a program called Mission Daybreak. Well, it's a challenge designed to help the VA develop new suicide prevention strategies for veterans, and that's straight from the VA. So they have a whole PDF that's in there. I'll link that in the show notes that describes everything that's going on. So anyone that's interested in this program, as far as actually submitting something to the innovation challenge, is encouraged to submit their detailed concept papers via the missiondaybreak.net website no later than 8 July. So today, when I'm recording this, it's June 16th. So around 3 weeks. So if you check out the website and you have an idea and you want to submit it, get it turned in. It's a program led by the federal government to really help that out. So I'll include 2 links. There's going to be one about the overall agenda for the program, and then there's going to be one for the strategy. So if you want to read those, like I said, again, in the show notes. So some information to back this up before we go into the focus of Mission Daybreak. So in the most recent National Veteran Suicide Prevention Annual Report, more than 45,000 American adults died by suicide. And that included 6,261 veterans. So it's the primary reason why Mission Daybreak is trying to foster or come up with solutions across a wide array of focus areas to combat this problem. It's just a big attempt across a wide area in order to help out. So some proposed solutions, if you're going to submit one, they should seek to address one or more of the designated challenging focus areas that they came up with. And these are from the Mission Daybreak webpage. I'll just read a couple of them. You can go to the website and check them out. I'll put that link there as well. But so, they want to help utilize some digital footprint data from active and passive sources. So that one, I'm reading it. It's, I guess what they're trying to say is there a place you can go and actively get some help? Or is there a place that's going to passively put out some help? They're also looking at creating improved access to and the efficiency of a veteran crisis line and services through technological innovation. So if you've ever been associated with the military, we're never really guilty of ever having the most up-to-date stuff. So I guess what they're trying to do is improve it. as far as being able to reach someone if you need help. There's some mention of giving veterans right care, right time, right place solutions. And so that's a big thing. Are you getting the proper care for what issues you're dealing with? Are you getting them at the right time? They could be too early, they could be too late, and then in the right place. It, I think that's a big thing. Can you get some help at home if you need it? Can you get some help if you have to go somewhere like to the VA? Can you get some help if you go to a third party? They also want to look for some ways to innovate, incorporating family and community into veteran well-being. I can't, state the importance of having a family, a supportive family or group around you to be helpful, because it can be at times. They also want to address any social determinants of health and well-being. So, are there anything that we could be doing socially that might be, detrimental to our overall mental health and well-being? And then they also like to look into some ways to reduce barriers of asking for help. So those are the proposed focus areas that they want to have solutions for. And there's more on the website, and I'll include that link. The first phase is right now in phase 1 of the challenge. They're going to have, if you're a participant and you want to submit something, an idea for consideration, there'll be a collection of open data. So open data surveys and reports on veteran suicide prevention. So there'll be a bunch of information for anyone that's interested in submitting to draw from to help you come up with your idea that you want to submit. There's also going to be some virtual information sessions coming up later, and I'll include those links as well. So they're going to allocate anywhere from $100,000 to $3 million, different ranging awards for up to 40 teams. If you have a team that's been working on something, maybe submit it and see where it goes. If it can help veterans and help prevent suicide, then it's a good thing. So once again, that website is missiondaybreak.net, spelled Mission Daybreak, all one word, .net. And you can go there for more information on the challenge. And lastly, this is straight from the Veteran Crisis Line. If you're a veteran having thoughts of suicide, or you know anyone who is, contact the Veterans Crisis Line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can call them at 1-800-273-8255 and press 1. But you can also chat online at veteranscrisisline.net, or you can text to 838-255. And this note will be included in the show notes for the duration of the podcast. As long as the podcast is around, I'll include those, the phone number, the chat number, and the online address. So please check those out and use them if you need to. Okay. In watch-related news, this one's titled, "The MoonSwatch Has to Repeat Kindergarten." So back in episode 1, the initial episode of the watchrolling.com podcast, the whole Swatch and Omega MoonSwatch collaboration had just dropped. And I covered it. I call it Omega and Swatch Have a Baby, or Swatch and Omega Have a Baby. And back then, I recorded the episode before we had the full story of what was going on. So even with the wonky release, by now everyone that's in the watch collecting community knows the release was kind of weird. It had some ups and downs. But even with the wonky release, I had some hope for the future of the release of the MoonSwatch when it came out. And I did, because eventually after that podcast, Swatch and Omega came out, or Swatch came out and said, "Hey, we're going to be able to buy these online." Well, we all know now that was a lie. But when they said that, we were pretty hopeful. I mean, I know that myself and my wife were like, "Oh, sweet, we can get them online. Even if there's a waiting list, we'll go in there and sign up for the waiting list. Maybe, you wait a couple of months and they'll tell you one's available and you can purchase it." I mean, we were really excited, but that came, again, they've since came out and said, nope, they're only going to be available in certain the same boutiques, and they're only going to be available in store. So in honor of the school year ending soon, and my wife, who's a teacher, her life achieving some normality again, let's run down the MoonSwatch's report card and see why they were held back in kindergarten this year. Full disclosure, I'm not a teacher. I've never played one on television. These are the most half-baked ideas, and I'm going off of my memory as far as what you got graded on as far as subjects go in kindergarten. So it's just meant to have a good time, but it sums up my thoughts on the whole MoonSwatch release. So the first subject, MoonSwatch, is getting a D+ in citizenship. So in my opinion, this is the one true grade that matters to little kids. We're talking kindergarten, right? Citizenship. As a little kid, how are you amongst your peers? Are you civil? Are you a teammate? Can you be a teammate? Or are you one of those little kids that were going around sowing chaos? I might have been that kid in kindergarten. I don't know. Can you communicate? Are you getting better at communicating? There'll be more on that later. So Sadly, we can't grade Swatch or Omega on this because technically you can't grade a parent. So we're going to grade the MoonSwatch. But y'all know what I'm really saying. I really enjoyed, from a citizen aspect, that Swatch and Omega decided to make the MoonSwatch and make a timepiece that can bring a little taste of more expensive fare to the masses. I think that's a good thing. I think that's great for citizenship. It's sharing a little bit of design elements with everybody and giving you a feel of the MoonSwatch. And it's kind of smart because, I thought if they were widely available, you could create some lifelong customers. I thought that that's literally what they were doing and what they were trying to go for with the MoonSwatch. But if that is what they thought about doing, it's not always the thought that counts. The whole execution was poor. It caused a lot of discord in the watch community between discussions on whether it's a real watch or not, how difficult it was to obtain one, talking about interjecting flippers in here, and we'll get more on that later. So overall, citizenship, even though I think that the MoonSwatch meant well, it's getting a D plus in citizenship. So not a good score. The next subject is math. We're giving the MoonSwatch a D minus. So in kindergarten, when you're in kindergarten, we're talking straight up math, right? Like learning your numbers, some basic addition, some basic subtraction. So the MoonSwatch's proficiency for math was not so hot when it comes to the release. At first, you got, okay, we're going to have 2 per person. Well, then as people were in line, the word comes out there's 1 per person. And there was other things like different stores got different amounts of MoonSwatches to sell. Now, I can kind of understand that one. I guess if a city's larger, or from your sales numbers, if you looked at that you might sell more MoonSwatches in one area than another one. But then I feel like if you knew that information, then you would know that some people were going to line up to buy this, right? These aren't the first swatches made with bioceramic. Have you sold more bioceramic watches in one place more than another? Were people lining up and buying swatches? Did you have steady sellers? Like somebody should have done some math, or MoonSwatch should have done some math, and we all know who MoonSwatch's parents are, should have done some math and figured out just how many they would need per store. And then figured out how many people were allowed to purchase per store long before people got in line. Because that 2 per person to 1 per person thing, I wasn't in line, but I can only imagine if I was in line and all of a sudden, I had 2 I really wanted to buy, because I'll tell you, if I had been in line, I would have got myself the Mercury, the Mission to Mercury, and the Sun Mission one for my wife. And then if I was in line and all of a sudden they're like, well, you can only get 1. I mean, I would have got my wife hers and I would have just sucked it up for me, but it still would have been like, feel bads about it. It would have been a lot of feel bads in that situation. So all in all, when it comes to math, MoonSwatch, D minus. All right, social studies. I call it little kid history, but social studies. MoonSwatch scored an F. I mean, this subject is essentially history for children. The MoonSwatch gets an F. So communication was poor. I mean, across the board, not only to the buyers, collectors, but the flippers as well. I'm serious. If the word about online sales has been out earlier, I mean, it might have knocked down the flipper turnout and allowed collectors a shot at the MoonSwatch. If they had came out with some hard and fast rules and communicated them like, hey, we're going to give you 2 per store, we're going to have X amount per store. I mean, I don't know if the X amount, that might have been bad, but you could have put some data out there, especially to the stores. You could have communicated better with the stores and with your customer base. So you could have knocked down stuff like flippers, long queue lines, whether they're going to be online or not. I mean, I don't know how anyone would come out and say they would be available online and then all of a sudden say they're not going to be available online. What's the reason? Provide some reasoning why that's been changed, because everyone's sitting here going like, well, I don't understand why you can't have them online. The most important one of all this stuff I just said, I think, is the fact like that the literal stores, there was reports of the stores not knowing, the stores that were picked to get them, not even knowing how many they were getting. That lack of communication just ties into, I think, the F in English ties into the D plus in citizenship. You just sowed chaos, and the worst part is this isn't even the MoonSwatch's fault, but the MoonSwatch is the one going to school. It's Swatch and Omega's fault, So an F in English, primarily based on communication. So sadly, I can't let the MoonSwatch move on to first grade. I mean, it's like I said, it's really sad because as a newer collector that's been collecting for around 3 years, the MoonSwatch release, for me anyways, has transcended anything I've known to date as a watch collector. The hype behind it, and I think the hype was justifiable. It's an affordable timepiece that provides a ton of cool colors and they're fun that theoretically could get you a foot in the door to the whole Omega and Swatch deal, right? It's it's awesome, and they had it, and it's crazy because it created discussion in and out of the community. Questions stuff as like, is it a real moon watch? Is it a toy? Did it diminish Omega? You know, or the one question I heard from people I knew that weren't watch collectors is, where can I get one? And then you got to tell them the whole sad story. Well, you got to go wait in a 5 mile line, and they may or may not have one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So sorry, MoonSwatch, you're not going to first grade. There's a whole lot of room for improvement. So if I could have scored a MoonSwatch, like I said earlier, it would have been the Mission to Mercury for me. I mean, I would have wore that thing all summer long. It would have been fun to own, but it's not on my wrist, and I'm not going to drive 5 hours to get one on my wrist. If I have a friend of mine that's going by there, he or she wants to grab me one, if they're lucky, then I'll get one. But other than that, I'm going to hold out that hopefully one day they get the online thing tailed out. And even then, as a matter of principle, I mean, I probably shouldn't get one, but they're a cool thing, and I would hate for them to go away just because I want to be stubborn. So, hopefully they sell them online. But most importantly, the whole thing to take away from this is that the MoonSwatch was let down because the MoonSwatch's parents didn't prepare it for kindergarten. Like, set it up for failure, And as a leader, your one big thing is to make sure you set up people for success. So MoonSwatch, I don't know. I don't know if there's any litigation, but I want to check it out so you can get to first grade. So in closing thoughts, I appreciate you turning to episode 11. This one was a lot of fun. I had fun recording it. I'm going to keep the format going forward for the most part. I worked on it for about a week, and I'm always going to have the veteran related news, and I'm going to have the watch related news. Like I said, I'm going to start tackling some tougher subjects with resources available in the veteran related news stuff. So, I don't want anyone to think because I'm discussing something serious like veteran suicide, and then I go into a fun topic like the MoonSwatch, that I'm not being serious about this. I really am. Veteran suicide is an important thing. I just ask that you use the links and check it out. If there's anything that can help anybody or yourself, then by all means use it. I'm going to keep those two big things. The other thing would be is that I used to announce the upcoming topic for the next week. I'm no longer going to do that. I'm no longer going to announce the topics because I feel like I get locked in. I announce it, a whole week goes by, something pops up, and then I'm kind of stuck doing something instead of something that's a little more relevant. Or if I'm, cruising, looking for veteran related news and I found something cool, I don't want to delay something that could be really helpful to my fellow veterans. So going forward, you're not going to hear any more on what's going to be on next week. Just know that you're going to get a veteran related news topic and you're going to get a watch related news topic. That's always going to be there. So this week's positive affirmation. I try not to be corny in these, but I've heard a lot of different stuff about leadership lately, and I've had to do a lot of thinking about leadership. And I know a lot of people say that people are born leaders, and I don't always believe that. You might have a natural inclination to not care and to put yourself out there. It doesn't mean you're a natural born leader. But I do feel the one basic concept that someone has to master to be an effective leader is effective communication. So if you find yourself having trouble leading, remember, I offer you this nugget: communicate, right? Communicate early and often. Give everyone the info they need to make decisions, and that's above and below you, right? Don't sugarcoat stuff. Like, you don't got to paint it as super ugly and super horrible. Just be very matter of fact, right? Give them the information they need to make decisions. Give them good info. Know that when you don't have accurate info right when they ask you, just say, hey, look, I don't have it right now, but I'll go get it and I'll get right back to you. Follow up. Most leaders will accept that because they'd rather you go get accurate information, as long as it take 26 hours, than give them some half-baked answer that doesn't turn out to be factual. Accurate information, practice doing it. And when you start doing this communicating, when you start actually getting past the first step, it's going to breed trust amongst your peers. It's going to open up avenues to you. And if you pay attention to it, it's going to build your self-confidence because you're just going to get used to it. It's going to become second nature. You're going to communicate. You're going to talk. And in some ways, it'll make it easier to advocate for yourself because most of the time, I don't think we're used as people to communicating for ourselves, right? In your professional roles, you get around to communicating other things for other people. It'll make it easier for you to speak up for yourself and to advocate on behalf of yourself. just take stock of it. As you start doing it, take stock of your ability to communicate and let it bolster your self-confidence. That is the first step, I believe, to improving as a leader. And with that, remember, at watchrolling.com, you make the watch. The watch doesn't make you.